With the success of Resident Evil 7, Capcom are sticking to their guns and keeping the series in the first person. A wise decision after the critical acclaim of Resident Evil 7, but can lightning strike twice in the same place? Well, it's looking that way because what we've seen so far is juicy. Alright, how's it going? I'm Paz, and today we're going to waffle about the new Resident Evil game and how it might succeed and how it might also fail. Shifting away from the third person was a big step for the series, with many fans being cautiously optimistic about the 7 entry to the franchise. Although I must admit, coming off of 6, most people would have taken a bag of rocks off Capcom and it would have been received more positively than Resident Evil 6. But we're past that now, we've moved on to better things, although I'm still not sold on continuing Ethan's story in the next installment, and we'll get to that in a minute. Nowadays, releasing a high-quality AAA experience that works as intended is a rare sight to see, with the likes of Anthem, Fallout 76, Cyberpunk, and most recently the third-person shooter RPG Outriders, all suffering either bad launches or were plagued by game-breaking bugs and performance issues. Now, I'm not comparing Resident Evil to these games. What I am trying to say is that Capcom have a chance here to be like, what am I buying? You mean what am I selling? Look at this. Look how spooky but also polished my game is. Yeah. The merchant guy better be in this one, and I don't mean Mr. Fat Fatty over here. Now, how can Resident Evil 8 succeed? Well, to me, Resident Evil is about horror and how our main cast of characters can overcome the horrifically hostile environments that they have to escape from, the horrific enemies that lurk around every corner, the ability to punch Nope, we aren't going there. Let's get back on track, let's not get distracted. Most of the Resident Evil games, and when I say most, I mean all of them excluding 5 and 6, had phenomenal tension building throughout most of the game. Everything had character. Take the setting of each game for example. Every place you went to had personality. It had depth to it, just like the characters that inhabited them did. From the dark, creepy corridors of the Spencer Mansion, the cold, eerie streets of Raccoon City, the twisted, wretched forest from Resident Evil 4, that horrible looking food the baker's making 7. Seriously, what the fuck is that? And now, Dimitrescu. The castle with the tall lady. What we've seen so far of the castle and the village surrounding it gives me serious Resident Evil 4 vibes, with a sprinkle of Resident Evil 7 in there as well, which, if they get right tonally, is going to make for some serious Resident Evil goodness. What Capcom are doing with the setting of Resident Evil 8 is definitely on the right track. And if you played the recent Maiden demo that's out now on PS5, you'll know just by playing that this game is oozing with atmosphere. And do you know what goes well with a great setting? Great storytelling and characters. Tasty. Resident Evil 8 continues the story of Ethan Winters, an everyday guy who was thrown into madness trying to save his wife Mia in Resident Evil 7. We still don't know a lot about Ethan really, so I'm hoping in the new installment his character gets fleshed out a little bit more. Now I mentioned that characters are an integral part of the RE franchise, as they should be in most mediums. But Capcom did such a great job in 7, making everything from the house to the Baker family have depth to them, that Ethan only really needed to be a vessel the player inhabited for it to feel more realistic for the player. Games like Halo and Half-Life succeed at this, thrusting you into these worlds, making you feel like the main character. Previous Resident Evil games feature iconic characters like Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine and Leon Kennedy, Redfield being the only one we know about so far to appear in the next entry to the franchise. The other two got to show their faces again too, with the remakes of the original Resident Evil 2 and 3 being released just after 7. I wonder if there's a pattern here. Excluding the remakes and spin-offs, we haven't seen Leon in a mainline series game since 2012's Resident Evil 6, and we haven't seen Jill since 5. Bringing it back to 8, Capcom can either go two ways with Ethan. Keep him how he is in 7, or make him become his own character, placing him in with all the other heroes we know. To me, they're likely going to keep him how he was in 7, which is fine, but to me 7 felt like a standalone experience that just happened to be in the Resident Evil franchise. So I'm wondering how they're going to make this next experience a memorable one. As I mentioned a second ago, Chris Redfield is back in the next game, but maybe as a villain this time? In the first trailer, Chris seems to take Ethan and Mia's child away, then puts a bullet in Mia's head. Sorry. He empties the clip into her as he leaves. Why? A dark action for a usually top bloke. Now, there has to be an explanation for this. Capcom have confirmed that it is the Chris Redfield, so it isn't someone impersonating him or anything, so we'll have to see. It could be a vision or something too, but I don't know. We'll find out in a couple of weeks, I guess. Oh, what's that? Resident Evil 8 could be shit. Why on earth would you say that? Well, I don't think anyone has forgotten, the things that went wrong with the franchise. Although I did enjoy 5 to an extent, but I might be one of the rare ones. Resident Evil 4 was the peak of the franchise, reinventing what we thought we knew was survival horror, with its innovating gameplay and inventory systems. Resident Evil 8 looks like it's borrowing elements from that, from what we've seen in the trailers, but this still could be a bad thing. Resident Evil 7 had a familiar inventory system, but that worked because of its slower pace. Its sequel is leaning more towards an action game rather than what we got in 7. The trailers show a number of enemies pushing the player at once, and the trusty old red barrels to kill groups of enemies. And let's not forget that giant werewolf thing with the hammer. It does look cool though. Obviously, this still could be a great game, and I'm willing to bet it will be. But for me, there's still that niggle in the back of my head that they're going to slip back into that cheesy action nonsense we got in 6. Man, I hated 6.
What's the matter? Not a fan of sewers?
Another reason why Resident Evil 8 could fall short is if the game doesn't have enough tension and horror. Games that make you pretty much superhuman with all the guns you can carry and loads of health usually drain all of that out of the experience, leaving a husk of a game. To me, from just watching these trailers, the game doesn't look like it has any decent horror elements. They've shown the main villains and they aren't really scary. The little werewolf people look like aggressive enemies that will keep you on your toes, but they don't look terrifying. The only thing that looked remotely scary was in the prison underneath the castle, the little goblin men cutting around the place. But the only way to find out is when the game launches on May 7th, which is only a few weeks away, and the devs have a live stream coming up too on the 15th of April. So mark your calendars for that, or you know, you would have either seen it or missed it, because I don't really know when this video will come out, to be honest. I really hope the game is mostly inspired by Resident Evil 4, because that game is so polished. And you know, Dead Space was inspired by it, and that became its own thing. It's a bit of a weird thing to bring that up really, but the only reason I did was to plug my new series, High Score, where I score the best moments from video games. Check it out and let me know what you think. Or, you know, don't. But anyway, if you got this far, thanks for listening to me waffle about the new Resident Evil game, and I really do hope it does well when it releases. With that being said, let me know down below what you think of Resident Evil 8. Cheers, all best for watching, and I'll see you soon.